Gurudev Pranam.
Pranam.
Gurudev, today we are on second sutra from Sadhan Pad of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. The sutra is Samadhi Bhavanartha Klesh Tanu Karanarthascha.
It is the reaction of the former slok, the former verse. Consequence. This is very important. Everything in the world is established by consequence, by what it shows, So, practicing Kriya Yoga, which we have discussed already earlier, what result we get? What is the benefit we can derive from that? That is Kleshottanukaranartha Samadhi Bhavanarthascha. Samadhi Bhavanarthascha Kleshottanukaranarthascha. Two things are mentioned here, Klesh and Samadhi. Klesh are of many kinds. And the world is full of klesh. The world is full of suffering. Klesh means suffering. Everybody has suffering. You have your kind of suffering, I have my kind of suffering. In the world, there is nobody who has no suffering. So, what is the remedy of suffering? That is what is discussed here. What is the remedy? Suffering is there. Of course, if you lack something and the suffering comes out of that, then in that case you can fulfill that. But there is suffering in the world which has virtually no reason. Actually, it does not show any reason. So, such suffering, which like a stray dog is also suffering because it doesn't get food. Birds are suffering because it is cold. Even the falcons are suffering because there is wind, strong wind. In strong wind they cannot float. They cannot float. They glide in the sky, space. They cannot glide in a strong wind. So, suffering is everywhere. There must be some way to remove this suffering as far as possible. That is Samadhi. Vedanta says there are three kinds of klesh. Adi Bhautik, Adi Daivik, Adhyatmik. Adi Bhautik suffering is physical suffering, like fever, like pain, body pain, some aching, head aching, headache, backache. So there are so much of aching. And this is physical suffering. And then Adi Daivik suffering is natural suffering, like rain, wind, flood, pestilence, and so many other things that we receive from nature. And third kind of suffering is the most difficult suffering, that is spiritual suffering. The spiritual suffering means mental suffering. When our thoughts are not in right direction, when our thoughts are wandering and having wrong objects to think of, then suffering comes. Wrong thinking brings suffering. Right thinking brings happiness. So wrong thinking brings suffering. That is what happens. So this physical, natural, and spiritual. These three kind of suffering the Vedanta speaks of suffering. But Patanjali speaks of 5 kind. Avidya, Asmita, Rag, Desho, Vinivesh, of which we will discuss later on. So these sufferings can be removed by Samadhi. And Samadhi are of many kinds. Samadhi is a very important thing in human life. Samadhi means absorption, mental absorption, absorption in reality, in divine, in reality, in truth, absorption, Samadhi. Everybody has a little bit experience of Samadhi, that he doesn't know that is Samadhi. So, but when an artist gets absorbed in the work of art, or a scientist peering through the microscope, it gets absorbed. Or any writer is absorbed with his pen. It's also kind of Samadhi. But that Samadhi is not spiritual Samadhi. Samadhi is material and spiritual. Intellectual Samadhi and spiritual Samadhi. In spiritual Samadhi, you remove all the thoughts, all the ideas, everything. Every single thought are eliminated from the mind, and you remain in your own form. Yogas chittavitti nirodha tada drushtu sarupi avasthanam. So that is a kind of Samadhi, that is real Samadhi, that is spiritual Samadhi. That has also different forms like Savichar, Savitarka, and Savikalpa, Nirvikalpa, all sorts of stages, different levels of Samadhi you will find, this Samadhi practice, what is Samadhi? When Samadhi is there, no suffering is there. Samadhi, the value of Samadhi is this, that by Samadhi you can ward off your mental problem, your suffering, your uneasiness. All can be eliminated. All negative things could be eliminated. All negative things could be eliminated.
So Gurudev, here Samadhi bhavanartha klesh tanu karanartha. So as the level of Samadhi increases, the sufferings reduces. Is it true?
Yes.
So they are
the person who is a man of Samadhi, all the time practicing Samadhi, he has no suffering. He has almost no suffering.
So we can say that Samadhi and sufferings are of opposite nature.
They are of opposite nature. They cannot go together.
They cannot go together.
That is, you have assumed correctly. Samadhi and suffering as the opposite. That's why suffering is there in the world. That people have to practice Samadhi. That indication is there from nature. That go and practice Samadhi, go and practice Samadhi, go and practice Samadhi, so that suffering may not attack you.
So as there are sufferings, so there is happiness. We have to understand.
Yeah, of course.
And Gurudev, here it is said Samadhi bhavana.
This happiness is little different. Normal happiness, like you have made a house and you have a happiness, or you have bought a car, you have some happiness. There are some happiness, worldly happiness. It's not worldly happiness. It's a spiritual joy, a peace. It's very much peace and inner inspiration.
So
inspiration.
We can say that the happiness we get from Samadhi is unconditional, but other happiness we have to depend upon material.
That is there, but
Or
even then, the reaction. You have purchased a car, you are dependent on the car, and your happiness has come from the car, but that is different. But Samadhi, you can also say that you are dependent on Samadhi. Yes, Samadhi is also a kind of means by which we can remove klesh, Samadhi is the means by which we can remove klesha. But that joy is a different joy.
So Gurudev, samadhi is a matter of a feeling, or it is hidden somewhere within us, and we have to realize it, awaken it.
As a matter of fact, it is hidden. It is a hidden power, a divine power, hidden divine power, Kundalini, sleeping divine power. We rather say sleeping rather than hidden, but even then it is hidden. It is to be awakened by some situation. You have to be pure in life, you have to have meditation, yoga. Without meditation, Kundalini doesn't rise. Kundalini has to be awakened. Kula Kundalini has to be awakened. And when it is awakened from the bottom of the spinal column, then it moves upward. And as it moves upward, penetrating through the chakras, samadhi takes place. Experience of samadhi takes place.
Sometimes we hear about rishis or sages that accidentally or incidentally they are enlightened. Is it because of their past karma?
Yes. Accidentally nobody enlightened. Nobody is enlightened. Some karma has to be done. Some effort has to be done in order to achieve something. It's but natural that you cannot be educated accidentally.
That is right.
You cannot be a doctor accidentally. If you cannot be a doctor, cannot be engineer, cannot be a technician, cannot be educated accidentally, how can you have samadhi accidentally?
But I mean, there are some sages, when they are 8 years old, 10 years old, they have the realization. And there are people, they meditate for 20 years, 30 years.
And now the point is this, the realization, a technician works, you can see that. But the realization you cannot see. So the words are not to be believed, but behavior has to be believed. The behavior. What sort of behavior he has? He has greed or not? His anger or not? He has suffering or not? All sorts of things have to be connected. It's a big, vast thing. It is easy to say that my grandfather was a rich man, very wealthy, highly wealthy, rich man. I am now just begging. So, it is easy to say that I am realized. Oh, you are realized. Oh, this man is realized. I heard some organization, that they say that this man is realization, has got realization. He is a realized person. And after some times, that man speaks against the organization, then says that, oh, he is not realized. That way, there are many falsehood, The world is full of falsehood, hypocrisy, falsehood, but it doesn't deceive anybody. If I say that I am realized, I do not deceive you, but deceive myself. I deceive myself.
Yes.
You say, oh, you are realized, oh, great, you go. But I have cheated myself, and for that I have to suffer.
Yes.
Again, klesh will come.
And if I have spoken something wrong, it bites my heart.
It bites a vivek, your conscience. Conscience bites you.
Yes. That is also kind of suffering.
That's also a kind of suffering. So you are inviting the suffering again by falsehood.
So, the message of this sutra is samadhi is the only one or ultimate means to remove the sufferings in reality.
If you have disease, you take medicine, you take treatment. So many kinds of treatments are not nowadays there in the world. So many kinds of treatment. So vast medical science has been created, you know. A vast medical science has been created. So that way disease, for disease, medicine is there. Treatment is there. For any suffering, there is remedy. But the main suffering is the suffering of the heart. Why I am born here, what I am to do, what is my duty. I have my wife, children, and money, and bank, and everything, but still I am not happy. There is sadness prevailing me, over me. So how to get rid of this sadness, how to get rid of frustration. So this sort of suffering, mental suffering, internal suffering, can be removed by Samadhi.
Thank you, Gurudev.